Welcome to the Orange County Forum, where newsmakers keep you informed about local, national, and global issues that impact Orange County today.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Orange County Forum. I'm Mike Ruane, Chairman of the Orange County Forum. I want to thank you for joining today's program. And today is another example of the fine type of quality programs we have. Let's give a real warm Orange County welcome. Welcome back from Washington, D.C. to Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez and Congressman Dana Rohrabacher. We had a coin toss while Congressman Rohrabacher was outside the room, and Congresswoman Sanchez gets to kick off today's comments. But we did want to, our format as it has been, that we allow, first we recognize that our representatives spend a considerable amount of time traveling away from their community. And we also want to, not only give them a welcome back to Orange County, but give them a chance to give their perspective and set the table before we go into questions. So with that, we'll turn it over first to Congresswoman Sanchez.
Great. Well, first of all, is that working? You can all hear me? Okay, well, first of all, yes, it's great to be back home. I will tell you a little secret, actually. Both Dana and I, of all the members who represent Orange County, he and I travel back almost every week to California. And the reason is pretty straightforward. He likes the ocean, and I just love the great weather. And so we see each other all the time on the planes. So it's great to be home. It's great to be home for this week. I want to thank all of you for being here today, especially to those who put together the Orange County Forum luncheon. And of course, you all know that well, first of all, let me talk a little bit because I do want to make the announcement for University of California at Irvine. And honestly, I believe it's because I made a video. And some of you have seen it, I think, and we sent it to the president, and it went viral, and it was about asking him to come and do the commencement speech here in Orange County. So we got word that he will be coming. President Obama will be giving the commencement speech. So that's pretty exciting. I think we've made a good balance where individual colleges and classes are going to get to do their little thing, but we're going to have one big, hold your hands and hoopla over there in the Anaheim Stadium, of course, which is in the 46th Congressional District. The 46th District, the 46th District is, of course, Anaheim, Garden Grove, Santa Ana, and Orange, and it's got sometimes a little piece of this and that, but pretty much that would be the central portion of Orange County. I've had the pleasure of representing the central portion now for 18 years. This is the 18th year for me in the United States House of Representatives. Because of that, and because, of the D's, deceased, defeat, disgraced, is usually the way people leave Congress. I am the ranking number 2 for all the Democrats on the Armed Services Committee, on the Joint Economic Committee, and on the Homeland Security Committee in the House. Just got to figure out how to get one of those guys in front of me out. So I work on a lot of things. Let me touch upon a couple things I've been working on. First of all, something very important where, to a large extent on this issue, Dana and I disagree. This is about immigration reform. I'm, as you know, for trying to pass a bill that would do several things. One of the pieces of legislation that I've done is called Startup Act 3.0, and this is with Michael Grimm, a Republican from the Staten Island area, and he and I are, and this is contained within the Senate bill that was passed last June on the comprehensive immigration reform. But this would be to deal with trying to ensure that those students who come from abroad and are in the STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, medicine are working and want to stay here, PhD programs want to stay here and start up companies, etc., that we would have some special visas for them to do that, because as you know, the place where we're really growing in Orange County is in these STEM areas. We've been able to bring a lot of basic research monies to UC Irvine, Cal State Fullerton, Chapman University, and some of our other universities. And by doing that, what we've done, and what the government, the federal government does best, is to push that basic money for research, basic research money into our top universities. That creates the Genome Project and other things, internet, GPS, these types of things that we take for granted were actually funded by the federal government. And then that knowledge base that we create in our research universities is applied, is taken by entrepreneurs and grown into the types of companies that we see. And if you know anything about patents, for example, you will know that the area with the largest submittal of patent and trademark requests is Orange County in northern San Diego as a section in our United States. Patent reform is an area where Dana and I actually agree on a lot of things. We really believe it's important for individual little creators and innovators to be able to make money off of their ideas and not have large companies come up and steal them and things of that sort. So that's actually an area where Dana and I would agree. But the startup is very important, I think, this act, and we're trying to pass it individually, but obviously it sits in the Senate bill. We'd like to see that in a comprehensive immigration reform bill. Another issue that I've been working on is something called the Common Sense Nutrition Disclosure Act. What does that mean? Well, under the Affordable Care Act, which, as you know, was passed, was signed actually 4 years ago tomorrow by President Obama, and we've been implementing it. You've seen some of that, the individual mandate, the requirement for health insurance, covered California here, etc. One of the things we had in there was, if you've ever lately taken a look at the menus that are sitting in restaurants and stuff where it tells you how many calories you're eating. And believe me, at least the women friends I have really decided sometimes when they've looked at the 3,000 calories in the, you know, double bacon cheeseburger that my husband loves, that they're really not going to order that and they're going to eat something else. So we think that's important, that this type of information is available. What my Disclosure Act does, and again it's a bipartisan thing where we've been working with Mick Morris of the state of Washington, is to, what they wanted to do was have like Domino's Pizza. Now, everybody who orders pizza, we usually order it over the phone or on the internet and everything. The FDA actually, when they put in the regulations for this, you know, if you go to a restaurant, it says the chicken grilled sandwich is 564 calories. What they said, they actually brought it all the way to places like Domino's, where all of us order it over the phone, we pick it up, or it gets delivered. Well, they said that a Domino's, for example, would have to put every possible combination of pizza and its caloric content on a menu board. You know, that menu board would be bigger probably than all the ovens they're cooking the pizza in. You know, and it's a very expensive thing for mom and pop type of shops and stuff. So we're trying to get those sort of silly regulations, you know, off of our small business owners. Let me talk about two other little things real fast. I've been working a lot on women in combat and the sexual assault stuff going on in our military. I'm glad to see so many women here. Thank you, ladies. I want to especially tell you why it's important that women should be in combat if they meet the standards and they want to be there. Okay? So when I went to MBA school, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Booth, wherever he's sitting today, my undergrad economics professor. But when I went to MBA school, one of the unwritten rules that I found out when I was there is that if you want to be a CEO of a company, you really need to be a line person. What does that mean? It means if you build cars, that you should have the profit and loss of the operation of building those cars, for example. Usually if you're going to be an HR person or what we call a staffing position, it's harder to get to the CEO position. So when we think about our military, you think about what is their primary function. And their primary function is combat. And when we, by restriction, do not allow women to be in combat roles, then the probability that we'll have more women generals, for example, is lowered. Okay, we're artificially keeping them out. This is important for a lot of reasons. First, women make up 51% of our population. And you know, we think differently, all of us as individuals, but 51% of our population, and we're keeping them out, we're keeping that talent away from what we may need in combat, for example. Secondly, our women have been in combat anyway. Hello, wake up. Think about when Jessica Lynch was taken as the first woman POW in the Iraq War. What, you think that they marched into the green zone and went and got her out of her tent and took her away and made her POW? No, she was on the front line. She was in a convoy that was bringing up supplies to the front line. Well, the front line came to her. So our women have been in combat, and it should reflect. But when she goes up to a board, when she goes up for promotion, and there sit the guys and they got, I was in combat, I was in combat, I was in combat. Jessica Lynch, which we all saw on TV, a POW, it doesn't say she was in combat. Why? Because it's a prohibition that existed from the Pentagon. So we are changing that. Leon Panetta, our secretary, a year and a half ago, made a new directive, our Joint Chiefs of Staff, so we're working on making sure that if women meet the standards and they want to be there, they can be in combat. And this is the reason that's so important, ladies, because if we can have those women reach those levels of generals and colonels, etc., when they leave the military, guess who runs our companies, our organizations? If you look at them, they tend to have military experience. Our military is where we build the leadership of our country. And so we need to have the women there, so when they get out, they can run the companies. Not that I don't love you guys, but you know, we need to, fair is fair. Lastly, because it's been out there, Obamacare, the ACA, I've been very supportive of it. We've been enrolling. We have until March 31st to enroll. We've had all sorts of events. We have high numbers in covered California. We have a lot of great stories, a majority of stories of people who are for the first time getting health care at an affordable rate. Now we got to teach them just how it is that they use that correctly so that we can bend that cost curve and all of us can begin to see the savings that will happen because people are finally covered. People with pre-existing conditions who never had access to health care anymore and would use the most expensive place in the whole healthcare system, the emergency hospital, where they didn't pay, and we, those of us who had health insurance, paid through our premiums. Now these people are going to have health care. We need to get them in. We put in Orange County alone, a few years ago, 5 or 7 years ago, we had one federally recognized clinic. That means a clinic in Orange County that would receive federal monies for taking care of people. In San Diego, for example, they had almost 200. In the last 3 years, we created 17 more. So clinics in the neighborhoods, creating capacity for people to go and get their issues taken care of rather than let it go, let it go, let it get worse, let it get bad, go to the most expensive place, the emergency room, clog it up for the real emergencies when they come in, being blocked. This is what we're trying to do with the Affordable Care Act. So I look forward to discussing the issues with my colleague. Thank you.
Congressman Rohrabacher, it's your opportunity to set the table before we get into a little bit of back and forth.
Well, let me just say that Loretta and I do work together on a number of issues, and we also have a number of areas in which we disagree, but we get along very well. And we do have long conversations on the airplane. I think sometimes I have longer conversations with Loretta than I do with my own wife. And, but there's no jealousy there at all. There's no jealousy.
I love Rhonda.
And we like her new Republican husband, too. We'll leave that set. But I'm very happy that Loretta's economics professor is here with us today, because he will understand, as I'm sure some of you, and most of you I would hope understand, that everything that we do in Washington is done within the context of what? A context of that we have a $3.5 trillion budget, but that $500 billion of that budget, of that spending that's taking place, is being done on credit. We are spending $500 billion more than we're taking in. Everything we do in Washington, that has to be part of the equation, because if it is not, we are, number one, we might lead to a financial catastrophe here where our money would become worthless. That's possible. Or it's possible that we can just go along and then our kids will just have to pay. All these young people who are out here with us today, they'll just have to pick it up after about 10 years, and then they won't have the same options that we have. I mean, we're talking about different government programs. Well, if we keep saddling our young people with $500 billion a year more in debt, when they go to borrow money for a home, it's not going to be there. When they want to educate their children, it's not going to be there. All these things that we think government needs to do will be restricted for our children because we are not doing what's right now in order to set our country onto a course of some sort of economic sanity. With that said, what am I doing in Washington, and what do I focus on? I'm in two committees, and I could have changed. I've been there 25 years, and Loretta's right about, you know, you're either the distinguished gentleman or the extinguished gentleman. And but I've managed to stick it out, and I am now a senior member of the two committees that I've stayed upon the entire time I've been in Congress. One is the Science Committee, and I am now the vice chairman of the entire Science Committee. And in that, I have been very involved with issues. Energy and water issues are two issues that I am very involved in, and I work very closely with our local people here in Orange County in terms of water policy and in terms of energy policies. Also very involved, as Loretta mentioned, on the patent issue. I am perhaps the well, I don't want to brag too much, but I am the leading force in Congress trying to oppose a power play by some huge multinational corporations who are aimed at diminishing patent protection in this country. In fact, they want to harmonize our law with Europe and with Asia, and our law happens to be protective of the little guy, protective of the individual inventor. Their laws are all set up to protect the big guy and their ability to take away the creativity of the little guy and cheat him out of what he deserves for inventing this or that. Now, so with that said, Loretta, I'm very happy that she has been with me in this fight, and she has been, and I have provided that leadership for the last 20 years. So it's, and it's been a tough fight. The last fight we had on that was just this year, and we again voted the same way on it. There was the bill is now in front of the Senate because we lost. Frankly, the vote went against us. But the only amendment to this bill, which was a horrible bill, the only amendment that passed was my amendment. And to show you how heinous this is, part of this new, quote, legislation that was aimed at patents, and they'll always tell you that they're trying to protect the little guy, part of that bill was to say that someone who has not been treated fairly by the patent office This has been a right of all of us since the founding of our country. If you'd think that the patent office is using the wrong criteria in order to deny you a patent, or someone's biased or whatever, you have a right to take it to court, just like everybody a U.S. citizen. This law was trying to eliminate the right of patent applicants to have their day in court if they don't think they've been treated legally. And my amendment was the only amendment that we were able to pass, eliminated that from the bill. So at least we eliminated that from the bill. But the bill's over in the Senate now, and as our friends from UCI can tell you, that bill is an abomination for America's universities. It's going to undermine technology developed in our universities, and they have come out now against it in a big way. But this type of power play by these multinational corporations are very difficult to confront. I've been doing that for 20 years. Other things I've been involved in, Loretta and I disagree on the issue of immigration. I don't believe that we should be legalizing the status of people who come here illegally. And I think when we do that, we do two things. We encourage many, many more people to come here, making it almost impossible to control the flow of immigration into our country. And when we do that, we also provide resources, jobs, and health care and education benefits that are supposed to be going to our people who are here, who, number one, immigrated legally, or number two, are citizens of this country. So I will never support legalizing the status of people who've come here illegally. Now, with that said, for example, the reform that Loretta mentioned, which is trying to make sure our current system handles people who have already been agreed to in a quicker, more efficient way. I'm for that. I'm for restructuring it so that we make sure we get very quality people coming here who can participate, and maybe giving a green card to everybody who gets an engineering degree from our universities and things like that. I support that, and we can work together in that area. One of the things I will say that I opposed the Affordable Care Act, and I would just have to say Obamacare passed without one Republican vote, but it only passed even with that because the president lied about it, and we all know that. We all know he said everybody's going to be able to keep their own insurance program. It's not going to cost anybody any more money, and we know that that was totally bogus. And instead, what we should be doing is having the president work with the Congress, and which he should have done then. But what we've had over these last few years is a standoff, and it's unfortunate because we have not had what you call regular order. The president hasn't been presenting his budgets to our regular process. We haven't been able to have the negotiations that go with the regular process. And the Senate, of course, we passed, in the House, we passed about 80 bills that are really significant for our economy. And they just go over to the Senate and they just sit there. And the Senate doesn't act upon it. Thus, the president doesn't even get a chance to either veto or not veto it. It's time that Congress gets back to regular order. And it does take longer to get things done, like it would have taken longer to get the Obamacare bill passed. But it would have been a different bill. Perhaps we would have focused just on those people who didn't have medical insurance, just on those who had pre-existing conditions and weren't able to get it. That's perhaps what we should have just focused on. Instead, we got this huge, grandiose program that has thrown the entire financial structure of 17% of our economy into chaos. And that's why today people don't know in the long run, and why the president has had to back off unilaterally and say, oh, well, we're going to exempt this and that on his own. We wouldn't have to go through all of this. It'd be a little bit more defined. It may not be the same bill. We probably would have focused just on those people who had pre-existing conditions. Maybe that's what we should have done. Instead, what we've got now is something, well, it's exemplified by the fact of two things. Number one, we have a punitive tax on anyone who invents something that is a medical device. Think about that. In this bill, they take 2.5% of the gross income that an inventor of a medical device has, and you take it away. That is the most punitive tax we have ever passed. And I will tell you now, someone very close to me has had leukemia. And this person would be dead today had Obamacare been in practice 10 years ago. Because 10 or 20 years ago, especially children's veins used to collapse when they would have chemotherapy because there's so much pressure on those veins. Well, today that's not the case. Kids and everybody else, they have a little thing that they implant inside the skin. It's called a portal, and that goes directly into the bloodstream, and so you don't have the infections. You don't have the blood veins collapsing. The Obamacare bill put a 2.5% tax on the people who invented that and are making that device. It's absurd, it's ridiculous, it's obscene. You know, okay, tax alcohol, tax cigarettes, let's put that on the bill. No, medical devices. So that could have been worked out had we had regular order, but we didn't. So we're trying to work our way around. We just did pass a bill, actually the 14th, right before we left, that said that eliminated the individual mandate. And with the money that we eliminated the individual mandate, and by the way, of course, the president has postponed the mandates for corporations on his own, I might add, and I don't understand how this president thinks he can just pick and choose what laws he's going to enforce, et cetera, but he does. So he's postponed this mandate on corporations. We decided we would eliminate the individual mandate, and the money saved by doing that, we'd put into the doc fix. Now, for those who don't know what that means, our doctors are being so pressed now, and the amount of money that they're receiving for taking care of Medicare patients, seniors, older people, is getting so restricted that they're beginning to refuse to see our seniors. And we fixed that by saying, okay, we're just going to save this money over here, and it will fix the doc fix, and thus our seniors will be taken care of. All of this, of course, is being done within the context of what I told you in the beginning. We're trying not to increase the level of deficit spending. If we do, it's a sinful thing against the next generation of Americans. With that said, Loretta and I work on water and energy projects locally. We have some disagreements on some of these other national issues, but I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you, and I always appreciate being here in California instead of in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
With that, we appreciate the insights. We want to give an Orange County thank you and applause for our great speakers from Washington.
The Orange County Forum is brought to you through the generous support of the Orange County Register and our sustaining partners. For more information about the Orange County Forum, call 949-588-9884. The Orange County Forum is a nonprofit organization. Your contributions are tax deductible.